Good morning, everyone. Today is Thursday, April 10th. The time is 10:14 a.m. And we call the Mount Vernon IDA regular meeting, monthly meeting into order. Can we please do the roll?
Sure. Chairman, Sean Patterson Howard,
Here?
member, Morton. Here. Member Johnson,
Here.
member Vanderpool,
Here.
member McDonough.
Here.
Four and a quorum plus, Dr. McDonough is present also. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for consideration of March 13, 2025.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes for March 13th, 2025.
There are seconds.
I second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion passes 4-0. Next matter on the agenda, Madam Chair, is the financial report and our financial statements.
Again, not a whole lot of activity. Not a whole lot of activity. Did collect a few more pilots. Totaling $114,676. Also, fees of $19,963. Little bit of interest there, and total is $134,313. Expenditures, again, only expenditure for the month is related to the staff member. 8403. Again, the earnings for the period, which is a month, 125,910. The balance sheet's not again changing much. At the end, the total assets is $3,759,959. Liabilities are a small amount of $71,59. In accounts payable, and then $1,043,148 in private payments that should go out, and this for the second payment in this year. Looking at it, basically the closing cash balance, $1,954,196. When you look at the pilot payments, once again, we have received the majority of them. We have 3 blueprints that are right now unpaid, which we continue to work with those projects to make sure that we receive them. As you know, we make sure that we are receiving the money that is due to the agency. Same thing when we look at the administrative fees. Also collecting administrative fees. We also have gone into this arrangement with Regency Hospitality about theirs. So that's it. It's not a whole lot of activity for this particular period. Present the financial report.
And on those who have late pilot payments, we assess the interest, correct? Or the penalties and fees?
And do.
Alrighty.
Okay, any other questions on the financial report? Okay, we can move on, if okay, to the business development report.
Good morning, everyone. A couple of highlights. Last week, we welcomed or did a grand opening for the new Chestnut Market convenience store and gas station on Bremerton Avenue. This was a rebuild and redesign of a gas station that had been in Mount Vernon for decades. And so they're now under the ownership of Chestnut Markets, who is quite a big convenience store, fuel dispensing organization in the Northeast. They are actually headquartered out of New Paltz, and they opened their first store on Gramerton Avenue here in Mount Vernon. And then 2 days ago, on Tuesday, April 8th, we held our construction-related businesses information session and networking event with partners MTA, the Empire State Development Corp., as well as Con Edison. We had a good amount of local businesses in the building. In between 25 and 30, I want to say the number was maybe 26. There, networking with one another, receiving information from each of those agencies to become certified, whether it's MWBE or certified with those agencies directly to expand their earning potential, but also to be prepared for development projects that are coming here into Mount Vernon over the next 2 years or so. And so we just want to make sure that our local businesses are are able to take advantage of those development opportunities that are coming into the city, but also to expand their capacity for projects throughout Westchester County and New York State overall. And so that was well received. We've been asked to do another one. And so I'm ruminating when, that will happen. Con Ed has also asked for a more directed networking event similar to that once they receive, or if they receive, approval for their thermal energy network project that is proposed for the south side of Mount Vernon. As you guys recall, Con Ed is looking to install a geothermal energy network here in Mount Vernon. They are going through the specific phases towards planning that project so that they can receive approval from the Public Service Commission, which is expected. The timeline for them to submit their completed, due diligence for the application is either late this year or early next year, but they will definitely have a decision by spring of 2026. And should they receive the go-ahead, they are looking to break ground towards the fall of 2026 for that project. And so we want to make sure that our local construction trade firms are prepared for that project as well. And so we will be working with Con Ed to get those vendors certified with Con Ed. Yes.
On that, there was an article in Lola this morning that made me think of you, in New Rochelle. Did you see that one?
No.
It's about preparing the New Rochelle youth for construction jobs in the midst of the boom that's going on in New Rochelle. There are two organizations mentioned, New Rochelle Forward and Soulful Synergy.
Mhm.
So I thought you might be interested in that because it's a pretty good article and they're really working hard to prep. So they have local workforce to meet the development needs in the community.
Right. So we work hand in hand with Soulful Synergy. So they do have a presence. They were in fact there on Tuesday. And so we too, well, it will not be the city that prepares these local organizations. It was us providing the resources for the local organizations to engage directly with Con Ed, with the MTA and the ESD. And so Soulful Synergy, for example, was present so that they can get in direct contact with those agencies and perhaps establish the training for the local businesses to get up to
So-
speed.
And Soulful Synergy, and this might kind of predate you in this role, Soulful Synergy has had a contracting relationship with the city through the Youth Bureau. So Soulful Synergy has done trainings for our Youth Bureau, for our workforce 18 to 24 years old. We have Sentinel in Mount Vernon that does the same. And we have Bonanza, which has had, a few small contracts with the city, who also are looking to expand their workforce training. We do that also with Chris Williams, electrical. He does electrical. And then we're having conversations also with Teamsters 456 and some of the other locals about doing apprenticeship projects here in the city of Mount Vernon. So that's what a lot of this was about. Not only has Director Mack, did that project, but we're looking at kind of business to business relationships. I know that 115 McQuestion will be doing a resource fair here in City Hall to meet with several of the businesses, everyone from Ross Windows to Sabitsky, or, all of the different vendors in Mount Vernon. And I know we're in the process of looking at our UTEP.
Yep.
Again, and as we're looking at our UTEP and we're looking to revise our UTEP for providing benefits to other organizations, I think within our UTEP, we need to build something in that they're using, not just local work, because that's already in there, but local suppliers.
Yeah.
Right? We have we probably have about 4 glass manufacturers. We have people who are doing lumber and concrete and tile and electrical and HVAC and asphalt, right? And we want to make sure that those businesses are also prospering. And so if people want, you just can't come in and get the benefits of the city and then bring in all of your labor and all of your contracts from Long Island and Ulster County, right? And so, those are some of the things that we've been doing, and the Youth Bureau continues to also do work around sustainability training. We just did a big workforce development training in partnership, or recruitment training, with ELOC, Environmental Leaders of Color, over, was it Westchester Community College or at the Dole Center?
It was at the center.
In partnership with with Westchester Community College and others, where we're training people in the blue and the green infrastructure jobs, because, we definitely want to make sure that our workforce is prepared to benefit. We know once our comprehensive plan and our rezoning and our environmental reviews are done, just like New Rochelle did it, that the projects are going to come.
Right.
And they're going to come quick. And that's why we've been really, really pushing. And I'll let you talk about the job fair yesterday.
Right. Well, and so let me just backtrack. So I use the term construction trade firms as an overarching description for all of the different organizations that the mayor just mentioned. There were HVAC in the room. There were engineers in the room. There were asphalt companies in the room. It wasn't just general contractors or the builders who are under Union 456. In fact, I invited the unions to come also. It conflicted with something else they had going on, which is why I've been asked to have another one of these events so that we could get all of the trades to come in a way that it meets their calendars. So we had plumbing, we had electrical, we had asphalt, we had HVAC, we had stone makers in the room, we had general contractors. And all of those, and I put it under the overarching term, and I realized that I speak in a way that isn't detailed enough because I'm succinct and I want to get to the point. But all of those different trades also do business with MTA and Con Ed and ESD. And so it was a way to comprehensively meet the needs, not just of the city for development that's coming, but also for the businesses themselves to expand their reach. We want to make sure that our businesses get the first dibs, but that we also get to circulate the dollar here within the community, as the mayor mentioned. And we have not done a really good job of that in the past. And so we are now moving in that direction to do it. So yesterday, we also held the job fair in connection with Westchester Putnam Employment Center. That was all types of vendors or employers in the room, including the Department of Corrections and New York State Troopers. And there were, of course, retirement homes that were there. The Department of Buildings, I believe, found someone who may meet our need for a second plan examiner. So the Department of Buildings was there, the Department of Recreation was there. They're looking for CDL drivers, as is the DPW. And so there were more than 1,000 people who came through that job fair. And we've also been asked to do another one of those. So, and we'll bring in, White Plains Hospital was there, but Mount Vernon Hospital, it didn't meet their schedule. So we'll have to do another one where Mount Vernon Hospital is present and, out in front. So the desire for these type of networking or job opportunity events is in high demand. People want to be here in Mount Vernon. The businesses in Mount Vernon want the opportunity. Residents in Mount Vernon want to work in Mount Vernon. They want the apprenticeship opportunities. Yesterday, I reached out to Ace Natural, who is the organic company. We took a tour of them
A couple of years ago.
a couple of years ago, because there's an opportunity that we have not thought about, or it just appeared to me over the last week or so, for direct to consumer, right? Because they are selling organic and other products, but they are largely B2B. There may be an opportunity for them to be directly to the consumer, especially for residents along that Sanford Boulevard corridor, where we now no longer have not a restaurant, a grocery store. And so I'm waiting to hear back from them. So perhaps there's some way we can expand their reach, and then also put them in touch with local faith-based organizations and restaurants primarily, and other food service organizations, perhaps the school district. But we've got to make sure that our businesses are able to make money off of our residents, and then we have many of our residents look inward to spend their money. That is going to help us grow the economy here in the city of Mount Vernon if we circulate that dollar better. And I took a lot of time. Thank you.
So just briefly, this sounds great, and we should, I think, over the next months or year or so, look at how we can formalize a relationship with the Career and Technical Education Department in the school district.
Yep.
Which we're working to rebuild. We've got a hospitality component of it.
Yep.
But certainly we need a lot of rebuilding to serve what's happening here, what you just described is happening here. And we have the infrastructure that's starting to emerge there. Certainly space is something that's gonna be coming online. So I mean, I think this is a wonderful
Yeah.
opportunity to do what we've talked about, which is really unite these different major components of the local government.
And I do have a relationship with Career and Technical,
Brian
the CTE, Brian Simmons.
Yeah.
We worked on several grants together last year when we were looking to bring in a relationship with Pace University's School of Professional Health. And unfortunately, we did not win those grants, but I do have a relationship. And so once I finish the next few priorities that I have on my plate over the 3 weeks, it's my intention to reach out to Brian towards the end of May and then discuss that hospitality component in the school district, because many of our restaurants are without staff.
And restart an electrical component, restart a carpentry component, a masonry component.
Yep.
Well, I mean, those
These
are the
skill
things that
trades.
we've been really asking for. And, when this administration came on, we really supported the whole hospitality piece of it. We have utilized the services of the food services component. I know in our evening of her, just, last week, I believe, or a week before last, the food trades students at the high school helped to cater that event. yesterday at the Dole Center, our beauty and barber students gave out free haircuts, and they do those things for the seniors and go around to different community events. We partner with them. The Youth Bureau currently has a group of students in a medical health training program that we partner with Montefiore Hospital and the Mount Vernon, well, the Westchester Community Health Center now to do. So we've been looking at those things, you know, Robin and I think Morton, as well as Stephanie, you didn't go to high school, right? So the four of us sitting around the table, yeah, we all graduated from the high school, and we've graduated from the high school. Mount Vernon High School was pretty much more like BOCES than BOCES were. Most of the students in the region came to the high school for the trades. So the dentistry program, the architectural program, the HVAC, the electrical, the film program, the food trades, FBLA, the business program. We're partnering with the high school and the VITA program right now for those who are learning, who are doing finance and learning how to do taxes. They're down at the center. So we've had an active, you know, and it's interesting because we do a lot with the school district and some of the programs. Unfortunately, those are not the things that are highlighted.
Yeah.
Right. They talk about how the school district and the city support each other, but they're already actively happening. And we've definitely been pushing for some of that to come back. And the space is already available at the high school, all of those big, huge spaces in the back. Earl Mitchell, who we graduated with from Ford, came and did the whole auto mechanic training and hybrid and electric cars training program with them. So we've been supporting those efforts, and we will continue to support them more and very intentionally. And I'm glad that you're on the board and that you believe that we should be working together to do this, because our workforce begins with our students in the school district. And if we're not doing it at that level, I have three young men who I expect to be here today after school coming so that I can connect them with Chris Williams Electric. But once the high school gets their program back online, then we can do it in a more formal way.
Sure.
Until then, we're doing it informally and through the Youth Bureau and working with some of our builders. So, yeah.
And so next on the item is Sentinel Development, Penrose project. And in your packet is a internal memorandum from Victoria Stores of Stores Associates. Not sure if you guys have had a chance to take a look at it, but I'm going to ask the guidance from Darius how we should address that at this point of the meeting.
You know, we could talk about, you know, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it. We could talk about general concept of the project that's proposed. I know they've been before the city council, they've been before the IDA board here. We need some direction here from the board of where we want to go. We've had a number of conversations with Robin and I, and they want the ground lease to be entered into. The first step would be that the city would likely transfer lots to the IDA, then the IDA would enter into a ground lease, or there could be a ground lease entered into by both entities with Penrose to develop this property. If they don't get approvals, if they don't develop, there'd be a reverter back to us and the city. But we want to move forward with that. If we do, we can finalize the ground lease and get that done. We just need direction from this board.
Well, I don't think it's really under the purview of this board. I believe those properties right now are under the purview of the real estate board for the most part, and not the IDA. And so until the real estate board, for which they are city properties, decides on some, we
The IDA owns some.
we own some, and then the city
Oh, yeah, the city and the IDA.
owns some also. So it's really
Correct.
once the real estate committee decides if they're willing to transfer some of those over to the IDA or how we're
Yeah,
going
we
to
don't,
move forward.
we could,
And then us collectively decide on the land, you know, on the land lease. It's going to kind of be hard to do any of these pro forma numbers because we don't have those. That's going to be a big portion of this. So the IDA has a significant footprint but I know the properties on Third Avenue. There's a significant lot on Third Avenue that they need
Yeah.
for entrance and exit.
Mhm.
That is going to be part of this footprint.
I mean, the
That-
city could transfer together. They don't have to. They can keep it, then we can enter into a ground lease on both, for both of us. There's ways to do it.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
but
I hear you.
this board is one piece, the city has a separate, and I know for the public, that might sound strange.
Right.
The two boards are not one and the same. The real estate committee is chaired by Comptroller Morton, and our assessor sits on it with the city council president, and that's kind of separate. So,
So maybe we could, well,
I think we should table that until the real estate committee decides what they want to do or how they want to move forward, or we might have to have a joint conversation.
The real estate committee has made its position very, very clear on this matter several times. And the real estate committee has said that the real estate committee is not taking any action on those properties until they get some direction from the city council as to what it is that the city has decided as to whether or not they wish to enter into some sort of arrangement or agreement with Clinton. Because it makes very, very little sense for this real estate committee to then make a recommendation to the council if the council is not actually, in agreement or alignment with this project
Yeah.
or whatever the case may be,
Okay.
right?
And the tax abatement too. I mean, if you sign a lease agreement with them, their expectation will be that it's tacitly understood that they're gonna get a tax abatement from the IDA, wouldn't it? Because they're not gonna want a lease agreement unless they get the tax abatement.
Well, right, so,
Not mandated.
so it's,
Oh, yeah.
well, so then, no, Mr. McDonough is right. I
Yeah.
mean, the issue at hand is that it also speaks to the issue in which the mayor sent a letter on behalf as the chair, I think, of IDA to the city council about this issue around process
Yeah.
and whether or not it should be a flipped process, right?
Yeah.
On this, and that decision needs to also be made. So there's a number of variables here that need to be decided as to what makes good prudent sense. And the reason why I'm saying this, because, I guess I'm the, one of the dinosaurs in the room, right? And what I remember clearly is I then being restitution commissioner and my objection to or actually not my lack of knowledge. Wasn't even aware that there was this MOU that was signed with the Library Square project with the Y, right?
Oh.
And the fact that we put something that made an agreement, or the council made an agreement with them for that project, and which eventually became a land distribution agreement with them. And yet we are now some, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years later. And the asset of the city is tied up in this project that seemingly has not moved, right?
Yeah.
And what I don't want us to end up being is in the very same situation,
Right.
right, today with property that two entities of the city.
Okay.
The city and IDA own properties right now that, right, what's going to be the benefit to it? We always hear the cry from the public now about the fact that we've not sold these properties, we're not putting them back on the tax rolls. It's causing a financial strain upon the city and all that. So all of these factors have to be taken into consideration before we start to make decisions on this particular project. Now, it all, again, I think it goes with that, points to a conversation with the city council and making sure that the city as an entity has decided that this may be a project that is worth at least considering and going into some agreement with them with some very clear targets and sets, right? As to what needs to be achieved in order to be able to make a determination whether the project's a go or not. Right on. So that's kind of where I am. And I guess this is my kind of being a dinosaur in the room too. And then two, now being the chief fiscal officer and being the person who's trying to figure out, well, how do we kind of bring in revenue? I hear the ground lease thing. I'm assuming that that's a little different than the way in which we move forward with the Library Square, that you'd be getting some money that's coming in, which is an advantage to the fact that right now we're getting nothing on these properties. So yeah, but there still needs to be a point in whatever agreement we put together. There has to be at least this measure of when we decide this is a go, no go, this is beneficial, not beneficial to moving the city moving forward.
And I think that's what most projects are looking for, right? They're looking for, what is the path? What is the line? What is the direction? Not the kind of pinball bing, bing, bing
Mhm.
back between the city council, the IDA, the real estate board. I think as I sat at Biz Now and as I kind of, have been looking at how Portchester and New Rochelle and different communities have been moving their projects along, right? There was some certainty to the process. And, yes, we were waiting on doing our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan is done now.
Right.
Both of those areas. And yes, we can do the environmental reviews and the rezoning of it, but now people are kind of just trying to get an understanding of the process. And so when I said the IDA, it's not necessarily here yet, it's with the real estate committee, and the real estate committee, like, what people don't understand is I definitely don't sit and watch the real estate committee meetings. I don't, right? And I don't sit and watch every city council meeting because I have plenty of meetings that I have to sit in. And so I respect what other boards are doing. And when it's time for me to be involved in the process, I'll get involved in the process. But like you said, it is sitting at the city council. And the city council is at a place where they kind of have to make a decision. But as we said, we talked about making changes to the process also. And so, we'll have to have some.
From a real estate committee standpoint, it's a matter of that there has to be a declaration that these properties are for municipal use, in the sense of municipal use, and that the city is saying that it's going to go into some agreement with the Sentinel on this property, right? At the end of the day, right, the process calls for either one, us to bid the process and bid the auction/bid the properties out, or two, declare that it's for municipal use.
Correct.
Right? So at some point, the declaration needs to be made as to which is the pathway with these properties. We're holding it in abeyance because we know that there are conversations that are being had,
Yeah, right.
but we need a decision. And it's not for the real estate commission to make that decision.
Correct.
We'll speak to the city council.
Okay.
Okay.
Next,
Do you want to do?
we have funds.
Oh, Fun City, yes. So, Fun City is progressing through the building permit process, and the certificate of tenancy process. And, at the same time, the planning department is, working on the zone amendment, the text zone amendment to, someone has a question?
Well, it looked like somebody's trying to be a minute.
Oh,
Yeah, I mean, but yeah. No. I think this is wrong Zoom.
so the planning department is working on the zone text amendment, which would allow for this type of business to operate within the commercial business district, for which there is not in our zone for commercial business districts, there isn't any use of an indoor recreation amusement type business. And so we've got to add it to our zone for our commercial business district zone, and it will go through the local law.
So they're doing that now.
So they're working on, so that's going through the.
And that should be a simple, quick process. I mean,
Yeah.
So then we did speak to them the other day. They have a current pilot, I think, that expires in 2035, if I recall. They are likely to come in with an application to extend that pilot for Fun City, which is a unique use here. They said they were going to submit the application. We haven't seen it yet. We did talk to them, what was it, last Friday?
Last Friday.
Friday it was. So we expect the draft application to come in, and then an application to be filed in the next 3 to 4 weeks, probably before the next meeting. So
Can you all and sort of y'all have answered conversations with somebody who contacts me?
yeah, there was no details. They just wanted to know the process, but we can cut that in. Sure. Sure.
Sure.
I'd rather be in it at ground level, not at state law.
Oh,
We didn't know when they wanted to talk.
I'm not saying that, I'm just saying y'all do real.
Sure.
Just going forward.
yeah, because they absolutely, so one of the things that I always do is ask, what is the purpose of the meeting? And so they indicated that they wanted to give an update on Fun City. I specifically asked, was the conversation going to be related to the pilot? they indicated no. And so,
But with that,
He's just saying going forward.
no, I'm not,
So
no,
we haven't had any financial contracts.
no financial conversations.
And when they do,
and we did say to them,
controller will be included.
give us a draft. So we would actually give it to the whole board
Right,
before it gets filed, but we will definitely get it to, Dr.
Right.
Morton first. And, but the whole board will see it before even the application.
I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah.
yes, and I wanted to be clear too.
Doug
Yeah.
Ginsberg.
Ginsburg.
But I think that's.
GD.
GD.
financial
The project Heritage.
Good.
Heritage.
Is the.
Heritage, that's Heritage North,
Is that, okay, sorry, I didn't know about that name.
yeah.
Yeah, but we will definitely get
Yeah.
it to you, Dr. Morton.
No problem.
Yep, okay. What else we have? That was it on the.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Well, then we have.
And that ends my report.
A long report today, very well.
Sorry, last one.
But.
I do have one
So,
report. I just-
along those lines though, when we even at saying, talking about financial piece. And I don't even know, maybe it requires some research, but I'm trying to figure out how do we begin some sort of initiative to be able to help to draw in
Mm-hmm,
more businesses and what through incentives that are beneficial.
right.
Right, I know we've been talking about, no, we've been having conversations about pilots and things of the sort that all are tied to residential kinds of properties, so in some cases, mixed use kind of properties, right? But what about businesses, right? And the fact that we know that we've got some pilots that are actually tied to businesses, right? But I don't necessarily see applications that are coming in about business specific kind of in financial support and assistance and all of that. And, we got a number of cylinders that are moving, like we just talked about this. And here's where I think that we in Mount Vernon do ourselves a disservice, right? In that we're not having cross-pollination of efforts and nor communication and conversation about how this kind of all works together in order to get the economy moving, right, in on that. And so we know as we drive through Mount Vernon, we're no different. I was visiting Albany at one point and even Buffalo. Had a conversation with the Buffalo comptroller too. I mean, we all are dealing with these issues of vacant commercial spaces that have occurred primarily because of COVID and a lot of the stuff that's happened that, in the 80s and 90s, 2000s, we grew big, huge. And now we're at this place where huge ain't the way to go, right? But how do we begin to try to figure out two things? One, that we incentivize business coming into this city, and are there some funding sources that
There are.
IDA has access to that could help to drive that?
Well,
Right, because and marry that to the conversation that's also happening with the economic development
and that's what I was gonna say. This is
in
what we're doing
what
now.
is happening there kind of as well, right? On that, and I know we all are, and we all are connected to that too, but I think that we just need to get a kind of laser focus in on how do we kind of do it, especially with what's going on, right, nationally
Yeah.
and all of that, and even with these tariffs and all of that right about now, we gotta figure out a way to protect our own community.
Yeah.
Right, on this, and that means that we can't have this place where, it's not my responsibility, so let them handle it kind of approach anymore. We all gotta be all in, that's the city, the IDA, the URA, the school district, all of the business community, all of us kind of all in it to say, how do we insulate ourselves from what is happening out here?
So that's where I think the work that we're doing on the Economic Development Commission does bring it all together. Because on the Economic Development Commission, you have the IDA, you have the URA, you have the real estate committee, you have, all of these separate entities are all sitting and represented on there. And we are looking at, and we are drilling down and getting the data that we need citywide to see what industries are bringing in revenues, not just tax revenues, but sales tax revenues, property tax revenues, jobs, which ones are bringing in jobs. Looking and see what we don't have. The legislative committee within the Economic Development Commission, looking at vacancy taxes, looking at, right, because that helps to incentivize, right? Because we have a lot of vacant storefronts, but we also have vacant storefronts that are owned by individuals who really don't have any real economic motivation. They don't have any motivation to do anything with those storefronts, right? And so if you're sitting there and you start charging them for vacancy and maintenance taxes on those properties because they're not even maintaining the properties, which is adding to blight.
Yeah.
This is something that other communities have done to spur economic development. So we're looking at those tools. We're looking at all types of tools, even including eminent domain around some things. So we as the city have to be knowledgeable of the tools that we can use, write those legislation so that that can help deal with some of the property owners who don't want to let go of properties so that people who are interested in coming in, because right now to come into some of these vacant spaces that we have that people have held on to for generations of their family with no real investment in Mount Vernon, you have to pay an exorbitant rent. You have to pay all of the renovation. You have to pay the utilities. They want you to pay the property taxes, and they even want you to give a portion of the profits. As a business, that's the last thing that I would want to do is come in there. That was one of the challenges we had with an anchor business.
Yeah.
In Fleetwood recently is, why should they invest all of this into a spot when they really don't have any kind of future in it? And so we have to look at all of those things and making sure that our property owners in our retail and our industrial areas are partners, because historically Mount Vernon has had no tools that would incentivize them to develop in those spaces, to sell those spaces, to bring partners in those spaces. There was nothing, there were no tools and no levers used. And so what a lot of them have done is just gotten to the process of land banking them, putting in for certiaries each year and getting tax reductions on them.
Yep.
And writing them off on their taxes. So we have to, like you said, from IDA, how can we incentivize through opportunity loans, through new market tax credits, through the IDA, the URA, those entities that we have in our city? How can we kind of take advantage of some of those things that we know will happen under this administration, right? Because that's what we know this administration does, is opportunity zones. How do we make sure we're ready for those opportunity zone credits and designations, so that we can get financing into the city for our businesses, both retail and in the industrial areas. And at the same time, make sure that those who have been lazy and who have refused to partner with the city and did not feel accountable to the city because we've had no rules and ordinances in place. Once we get those ordinances in place, it gets to be a different conversation as to the fact that you can't just hold on to these properties. And that's what communities like ours have had to do around the country. And so those are the tools that we're researching and pulling together now so we could start moving together with the legislation to enact those type of tools. Those who don't want to do anything, we got tools for you. Those who want to do something and want to partner with the city, we have tools to invest in and bring resources to help develop economically.
Didn't you guys invest in a geographical information system a couple of years ago?
Yes.
Yes. That is a powerful tool for mapping the city in terms of for the real estate committee, properties you want to make for municipal use, feeding it into the economic development commission.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's been deployed for that. I haven't seen it on the website, but I can envision a day where I can go to the website and see a map of the city and sort of what your intention is for the city for different areas that aligns with the comprehensive plan. So GIS is being used more and more for that kind of economic development.
And that goes in line with the GFOA, putting your assets to work project. Tomorrow, we have a meeting with a group of property owners, all in one neighborhood, who are coming together to bundle their properties to do potentially a significant investment in an underinvested in neighborhood, not, market rate and retail, upscale, right? Real investment. And so these are, and I know some of this is happening because we have done the comprehensive plan and because we do have a vision set and we are investing in the building department and we are expanding our capacity to be able to review plans and projects through the building department with outside resources. And because the planning boards have put in process expedited procedures and we are looking at form-based zoning. Like, so the things that New Rochelle did in 2015, we kind of started doing last year. The things that Yonkers was starting in 2009, when I sat on their downtown redevelopment, commission, we're doing now. So other communities started the process 10 and 20 years ahead of us. Now that we're there, and we're putting these things into place and we're being very intentional about it. And then the first part of it also, which we invested in, and it's hard for the community to understand it. And we know all that we've done, but people don't always have an appreciation for it. But again, as we speak to developers, we've spent the last 4 years working on our infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right? And that was the first thing that we heard from people, even at the IDA. Even at these meetings, when people came in, they said, if we have to come in and fix the sewers and fix the roads and do all of this, then we need even a bigger incentive from you because we have to put so much money into infrastructure before we can even build our building. And so now again, is our infrastructure, our sewers, our stormwater mitigation, our bridges are back online, our roads are being paved. And we've invested in the comprehensive plan and the rezoning efforts, the building department and the planning department. There is a clearer picture being painted of who Mount Vernon is, what we're looking for, our expectations from partners, and how people can move together in a path that doesn't take, like you just said, 7 years, 10 years from a LATA or an MOU without any real direction after that. That's what no one wants to do that. What they want to know, I can come in, we can propose a project. We already know what the zoning is. We know what the codes are. We're going to be able to get through the land use process within a year, and we're going to be able to be in the ground. And that's the type of predictability they're looking for and they're getting excited about. And we're not seeking them out. I actually will be going to DC specifically to visit someone who might be looking to do a significant investment in our Sanford Boulevard corridor that we'll talk about. Because it's something that we've been saying that we want to see happen in that Hutch area. And now we have people who are coming to us and going, yeah, you're the right space. You're the right space.
So, two things. One, I think that, I don't want to fair on work. And maybe it, we don't have necessarily robust administrative staffing on it. And we look at other IAs, we read the infrastructure is so much stronger to be able to actually do some of the stuff that kind of needs to be done, that the board is not responsible for doing that thing, right? I mean, sometimes people don't necessarily understand that. So is there a way maybe we need to think about, do we also constitute a committee or a task force or something to kind of help to provide support in lieu of not having necessarily a staffing to support that? And if so, how do we identify who are the right people with the right skill set to kind of be on that? Because what we don't, what I don't Cause I don't want us to then get people appointed to committees, commissions and all of that, and they're not really focused in on doing the work that happens, it's a very, I guess, a personal agenda per se, as opposed to let me be here to provide my expertise, to be able to be fully engaged in it, and to be able to try and advance whatever that initiative is. All right, which I think will also help to fold into the Economic Development Commission, right? Work from the IDA perspective, because yeah, while Robin is sitting at that table as the director of business development, I'm sitting at the table as the comptroller, and why I even said like, listen, I may be sitting at the table, but I may have to identify somebody else to sit there for me, right? But I want to make sure that it's effective kind of in that. So I just throw that out as maybe you could begin to think about how do we provide that kind of resourcing and source for this kind of an initiative. The second thing is that you mentioned the putting essence of work. And so, yeah, I think that we definitely need to continue to go back and look at that playbook, that was given to us by them based upon their complete review of city-owned properties inclusive of the school district, because I think they lay out, right, for it, like how much square footage, all of that stuff we're talking about as it pertains to property that's owned by, when you say citywide, they're not talking about just the city of Mount Vernon, but they also looked at the school district and the library, those city entities on that, especially in light of that the school district is closing 3 schools, and that becomes asset real estate that actually I'm sure they'll be beginning to think about, well, what would want to be the repurposed, use kind of that, and how does that fold into a number of things, the comprehensive plan, the economic development initiatives, the transit oriented stuff that we are beginning to do now with the grant from the Department of Transportation. So yeah, I'll go back to my thing and then I'll stop. We got cylinders that are moving. I'm not too sure that the cylinders are in sync.
We'll pull you in a little bit more because you've been busy working on your audits, right? And so the subcommittees of the Economic Development Commission have been meeting, so, and we are going out and we're doing site visits and we're doing walking things and we're having conversations. I know that this board did speak about bringing on an administrative assistant or some type of clerical support for the IDA, looking at what the title, the duties and the function of Robin's position was, also identifying other monies in the budget, which we freed up to bring on an economic development consultant to also work with the IDA and the planning department and throughout the city, all in partnership to do that work. So that there is a robust team. And as you said, it's kind of not Robin and by herself. And it's also part of the connective tissue that goes between the IDA, the URA, the planning department, the building department, and making sure that we have, just like we have our pillars around public safety, human services, that economic development wing, because the economic development wing of the city is really like 4 of our departments or 5. Assessor, planning, buildings, IDA and URA, and how are we making sure that they are fully connecting? So it's an exciting time, right? We've been able to move from some of our third world problems, right? Which is having basic running and so wastewater and stormwater done and being able to cross over our railroad track, to starting to look at first world problems, which is how are we going to develop our city economically? And I don't know if there's always an appreciation for the fact that we had to deal with kind of what other cities took for granted. And so while other cities were able to use their ARPA monies to build, we had to use our ARPA monies just to become stable and functional. And so we're moving in a time that's exciting. It's exciting, and I believe as long as we stay focused and work together, that it will yield the results that Mount Vernon needs, because we've sat in there and we've supported other cities in doing it, and now it's our time.
Good stuff.
All right.
We have one resolution to consider today, resolution 4-2025-1, authorizing payment of invoices. The invoices are for the Board of Water Supply and Harris Beach, amount of 1,400 change for the water supply, 5,000 and change for the general counsel work from Harris Beach, and our annual reporting is approximately 1,600 and change. Is there a motion to approve this resolution?
I make a motion to approve resolution 4-2025-1.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor? Matter passes. Any new business?
Yeah, so as you know, well, I don't know, it was old. As you know, in previous meetings, we talked about, getting some additional assistance around, the, school migrations, the UTEP, and the multiplier, and looking at all of that as we, continue to, consider, projects, financial assistance for projects and things of that sort. And then we had previously, Stephanie and I had actually had a meeting with Rochester. And one out of that, we also came into contact with Vernon. And at our last meeting, we talked about us reaching out to them to see kind of a proposal on it. And so they have done so, and that's what I have sent out to the board with for you to review and for us to eventually have kind of discussions about what our next steps are, how we wish to proceed, if we wish to proceed in this manner or not. The scope of work that we talked to them about was threefold. Really doing a district and working and school migration study, assessing kind of up to recently constructed kind of projects in the way, estimating the municipal and the school district costs for projects that recently kind of gotten approved on them. To see if what of those services, if any, that we wanted to for contracting forward. And the reasoning is because we've been having a lot of discussion, about what is the right financial approach, methodology around providing financial assistance to these projects, especially residential projects, whether they are affordable or they are market rate or mixed use projects as we move forward. So kind of throw it out and then gave you all the information. You don't necessarily have to make a decision today on it, but it may be good for at least to have a discussion about it and then could get some direction from this board. One of the things too, and I think I mentioned it too, is about procurement. I want to make sure that also we are aligned with our one procurement policy. And we're doing, if we're going to contract someone, whether it's Urbanomics or someone else, that was actually done it in accordance to kind of one, our own policies, and two, what is required by law.
Yeah, I looked at the procurement and I'm familiar with it. I think you can hire them if you want the professional services, not go out to formal bid or get other proposals. You could get another proposal from another entity too and see what they would charge, but you could go out and hire them for professional services.
Yeah, that's
And I think it's a good idea to do this. I mean, it's a sort of, it went from New Rochelle to Fort Chester to now Mount Vernon. The concept was the comp plan, which I think the mayor you were talking about, which is very important. And then the concept of amending the UTEP similar to the way Portchester did. It was something I think we probably want to do, and then ultimately get an analysis of the impacts of projects on services in the city and the school district. So it's a good, in my opinion, a good path to go. And we could work on the UTEP with Urbanomics or with Robin, or whoever you want to do it, and get this proposal from Urbanomics. It's a good step forward.
Absolutely. You know, and I think it's not just a benefit to the city and the IDA. I think it's a benefit to the school district. I mean, and looking at that, it's not an overwhelming amount, but you know, would there be, I think it would be a reasonable expectation that this should be a shared cost, right? Because, you know, it's,
Why? Do you think the school district would be responsible for paying for some of this cost?
why not?
Because this is the proposal for the idea giving tax abatements. So why would the school district have to bear some of the cost of it?
Okay, I think there are several things that also deal with the school district trends, and I think there's an opportunity, since I've said it on a few occasions, but I'm not aware of anyone looking into it yet, for us to add into this some of the migration trends from outside communities into our community, because all of that impacts the school district right now, and all of it impacts the whether it's family migration or whatever, and the impacts onto the school district. If we're talking about a full economic or urbanomic study, that is an area that might be able to be added to this, because I can tell you that we are getting increasing numbers, and even Westchester County DSS is starting to look at the number of children and families that are being transferred into this district. And they're not being flagged by the school district, but that are coming here, and the number of families now in the past
Thank you.
2 years, 3 years now, that are now applying for Westchester County DSS services after their SOTA benefits have run out of New York City. The number of students that are coming into the Mount Vernon School District from New York City who are their 2 years of rent is being paid for them, right? To come into Mount Vernon. That means they're in the schools. And once that money runs out, then they're going to DSS and asking for all types of benefits. And the reason the city's doing that is because after a certain number of months, when people have moved into your community, the originating community is no longer responsible for providing them with ongoing benefits. And then they become fully the responsibility of the county. And so even last week, I spoke to people over at DSS and in the housing office who are saying the number is starting to really become overwhelming. And I don't want to say dumping, because that's a bad word to use when you're talking about people. But I know that New York City, and Newark caught them, and other communities have caught them, are really targeting our border cities of New York City by paying monies for their homeless population or their underhoused population to move into our community. And then our school district becomes responsible for educating them. Our county becomes responsible for providing benefits, and our city becomes responsible for providing services. So I think there can be an opportunity.
This urbanomics proposal. That's all important stuff, Madam Mayor, but looking at this proposal, you can.
I said, can we add?
If you go to
I
page 7.
said, is there potentially an opportunity to add to it?
To add.
Right,
to
we're not
expand
in
on
a
this?
shell.
I mean, you haven't even done work with them. Don't
So
you
the-
want to consider the proposal that's before the IDA right now?
Well,
It's an IDA
if
proposal.
we're
It's
gonna
not a
look-
school
If
district.
we're gonna look at it, we're gonna
Demographics.
look at the whole thing, because it does impact the city and it impacts the school district at the same time.
This proposal has to do with the financing that comes through the IDA, the tax abatements that come through the IDA. That's what this proposal is about.
Well, it also talks about the enrollment
Yeah, we've got them.
trends. It also talks about the enrollment trends in our community and in our school district.
Yes.
Right, for what we're serving. So, right, so some of those enrollment trends are not just coming from IDA sponsored tax abatements. They're coming also from transfers into our system from communities that are surrounding us. So, I have.
Demographic studies. We just had
Can
one
you
done.
please provide that too?
Sure,
Because
absolutely.
I've been asking for it, even in this meeting.
It's
that
probably
you
on the
can
school
look
district
at-
website right now.
So are some of our things, and when you ask for it, we give it to you. So it might be on your school district website. So can I formally request that as a member of the IDA, that if you do
The
have
demographic study that we
the
had.
demographic study,
Sure.
and do you have information that focuses on where the students who are coming into our district are coming from, right? What type of additional needs they might have, because these are often high special needs students, again, which the school district continues to talk about, that there is an increase in special needs students, and has said in the past that they feel sometimes the increase in special needs students comes from people who are living in buildings that receive pilots, right? So, if we're going to talk about trends of that's impacting the school district and impacting the economic stability, if there is a way potentially to expand this study, if we're going to do it, and it might cost a few more $1,000s, then I would say it might be helpful to also add that into it. It's not totally separate.
Okay.
Just a thought for consideration. And we can talk about, I was just putting it on the table. From my first kind of look at it,
So,
I think that doing the study is an absolutely good idea. I fully support it. I also just ask that we kind of expand it.
proposed, tax,
Pieces.
right, that, that's, right, one is a tax that is about enrollment in the school, the school child migration study, that's task one, right? But then there's task two and three, which, are related kind of to the projects that have been, again.
Looks like a $55,000 cost, Dr. Moore, am I reading that right?
Or if we do all three pieces.
Right.
We do-
Pieces.
yeah.
The piece for the school migration piece is $20,000. The other, right, is what they're.
Right.
proposing.
Yeah.
The piece for the study of existing projects, I think it's 20, right?
Yep,
That's
it's 25,000 and 20.
The most recently, and then if they, liberals attending meetings, that's a process, right? Totally to that, so I mean, basically, the whole thing, you break up three different components to realize, what, are we talking about all three? Or are we talking about 2, 3, or are we talking about just one, right?
Right.
That's what we think.
I wouldn't know if the fiscal policy new pilots approved. I don't know if they're maybe we need to talk to them, Robin, about whether that is, projects that have been built yet.
They were,
Or that, because we kind of had the analysis already from Ms. Stores about the pilots that are recently approved, but they haven't been built.
Right.
So they're gonna have the same analysis probably that Ms. Stores has using, unless they use a different, one, whatever, they can have something different, but maybe that's something you don't necessarily want to do now. It's only $5,000, so it's not a huge lift here. But
Might validate.
yeah, I mean, it's a small amount in the long run,
Yeah.
but
I mean, look, I feel there's an absolute benefit to this, because in what I've written, and I'm just looking at this, right? So, but what I read kind of in the executive summary in the early part of it is it says, we're seeing everywhere is that school enrollments are decreasing. Families and individuals are having less children. We're closing schools, right? Regardless of how great or challenged the school district is, they're closing. But at the same time as we're doing pilots and we're talking about multipliers, we're talking about using kind of the highest multipliers so you're saying, let's say that we're going to get more students, even though we're trending downward. So I think this really needs to happen. I'm in full support of it because like you said, it'll validate or it'll invalidate, and it'll give us kind of a clearer picture of what is happening because, because of what was done bad in the past and maybe what was not tracked well in the past. I understand the trepidation. I understand the frustration, not just because you're on the school board, because I'm a resident and I have to pay the same.
Given away from the IDA is school tax. That's the majority of what.
Absolutely, because most of the taxes in Mount Vernon are school taxes, 62%. So, I mean, it's always going to be the school district is going to have a higher percentage because of the percentage of taxes paid by residents and property owners in Mount Vernon. 62% is the school district, 25% is the city, and 13% is the county taxes. So it's always going to be the overwhelming amount because the overwhelming amount of taxes paid by property owners by 2.5 times what is paid to the city. We get 25 cents, y'all get 62 cents on the dollar. So the school district is always going to have the higher number. That's clear because you get the higher number of revenue because your budget is much higher than the city's now to serve 6,500 students. So, I mean, it's always going to be higher. So that's not rocket science. That's just plain math based on the percentage of what taxes are paid to the school district to begin with. It will always be a bigger number in the same proportion that it is based on what the people pay. We're not giving a higher break. It's the same proportion based on what they pay. And so I'm absolutely, like I said, in support of the study. Thank you and Assessor Vanderpool for going and having these conversations. I think it's something we absolutely need to do. We do know, not just in Mount Vernon, but in surrounding cities, that the enrollment numbers are changing and we have to be able to have more predictability around the future. And that's going to be very helpful as we plan developments, as we consider pilots, and as we consider a lot of things that we do in the city. So this study is going to help us for probably more than just the conversation around pilots.
So from my perspective, right, I think that the reason why we explored this path and began to look out and see what other communities actually were doing, what methodologies they were taking, is because I firmly that we have as City of Mount Vernon, not necessarily us around this table here, have been making decisions in vacuum and without sound data and information, period, right? And we can no longer continue to do that because we've recognized the fact that decisions have been made. And while they might have been sound decisions and good decisions at the time, which were many from a futuristic perspective, they have not done well by the city. We can no longer have that, right? So having a third party expert kind of in there is kind of look at these things, and to tell us kind of, where we are, what has been kind of the impact on it, and to try to help us to be able to formulate the pathway forward. I think is the advantage to us doing this. We didn't get here overnight. We're not gonna get out of this overnight. But what I do want to make sure is that we recognize the fact that we are partnering to kind of get this all done because it affects and to the point, yes, school district has been tremendously impacted by these decisions because of the way in which, of course, the tax structure is, right? And we understand that, right? But we also understand that the decisions also have been made around this without the school district's kind of full engagement. And now, while the school district is fully engaged in it, right, we need to make sure that we are looking at this from a very broad perspective as to what is in the best interest of the entire city to kind of move this thing forward. So that's why I would support for us just moving forward on the project. as it pertains to how we fund the project, listen, I mean, at this point, you know, if we got money in IDA to do it, if the school district was just to kind of contribute to it, great. If not, I mean, that's fine. I mean, I think that at the end of the day, it has to be done.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it has to be done. And I think that at the end of the day is the responsibility for us as the Mount Vernon IDA to make sure that it gets done. So,
I'm just saying, we were talking about shared benefits. I was just potentially recommending shared costs. And if that's not it, that's fine. But I still believe if we're gonna do it, just because what you said a few moments ago, if we're doing things in a way that is disconnected, right? We already have them looking at student enrollment data. And if they're already going to be doing that, to add an extra piece, even if it costs us a few $1,000s, rather than waiting for this to be done and then going out and doing another study by potentially another company or re-engaging them, if we can have them look at part of that piece on migration into our school district and transferring into our school district from surrounding communities, Portchester and New Rochelle.
Portion that you're asking.
That, yeah, well, no, I'm not even asking for,
I mean,
I'm not asking for the school
consider-
district to pay for anything.
Wasn't asking the school district to consider to.
No. We can cover, we can cover it. If we, you know, like, we keep talking about partnership, right? And so sometimes in partnership, we partner. I mean, if the benefits are gonna benefit the city and the school, right? It's one tax base. Then I was just suggesting, not demanding or introducing potentially that the school district could consider supporting it. And if that's a non-discussion, it's a non-discussion. I don't need to waste not another 5 seconds on it. But what I am asking is, if we're going to do this, since I definitely have serious concerns, and it's more the hearsay that we keep hearing, and I want to be able to quantify it, because it's going to continue to impact not just the school district, it's going to continue to impact the city. Literally, we know that Mount Vernon, and from working for 12 years in Yonkers, that Southwest Yonkers are the first entry points, oftentimes, for families coming out of New York City. Whether they're immigrant populations, whether they're populations that are being moved out from social services and homeless shelters out of New York City, they're being placed overwhelmingly in Mount Vernon. And then we also know at the same time, all of our surrounding municipalities, our partners in the county, have done it for 30 to 40 years. When they give their Section 8 certificates away, they give them a list to tell them to come to Mount Vernon and look for units. And so if we're looking at migration, again, it would capture those numbers of other cities in our own community in Westchester, sending them in.
So, like I said, what we do. So
Mhm.
what you're asking us to just go back and ask them.
Yes,
If they had a piece into about the migration,
yes,
but, okay, and see what that cost is.
yes.
And then we can come back to this board on,
Mhm.
all right? So I guess the question is, if everybody, agreement, I guess, with what has been presented. We on that too, and take it back.
Listen, I am absolutely in favor of it. Sometimes I feel like I'm sitting in the middle here with a lot of noise and being accused of harming the school district. There's a lot of rhetoric here, and I pride myself on being fair to the positions. And the more information that I have to make responsible decisions is absolutely I'm in favor of, right? Because no one is trying to hurt the city or the school district. So I'm ready to vote today. To have something like that.
Yeah, and I just don't wanna say, I think that I think we've come along. And I think we need to stay the pathway moving forward and not get ourselves, but we end up in our 7 points, right? Again, we can't afford to do that. We're in this together, and there's so much that needs to be done, right? And we don't need to kind of go back right? And make sure that we are taking positions as if we are at a certain standpoint on this. So I understand the mayor's point, I understand the Donna's point, on this. And I understand the perspective from the IDA and the city, and I understand what they call the students, right? At the end of the day, you know, was what I also say when in my role, the city, over to the district, when I make that in, is that we all are serving the same tax base. And at the end of the day, those individuals, at the end of the day, at the end of the day, those individuals are gonna suffer, based upon our inability or ability, based on benefit, or suffer based on our ability or inability to be able to have discussion and come to agreement and try to decide on how we're going to move forward. So, on that,
I'll
yes.
say that I'm in agreement with it too. I mean, I don't know if we have to get the full work scope of all, four. That's something we all can look into, but I did see here the consultant would project grade level enrollment for the school district over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
So I think that I'm definitely in agreement with it, and I guess we'll get the additional cost for the migration within the city. I don't see anything wrong with the share costs in regards to the, to this, here, for the professional services. I mean, we do it, with other things. It is one tax base, but, like we said, I am in agreement with this for us moving forward. Thank you.
All right, so I'll reach back out to Anonymous, ask them for that additional piece, and then report back to the board, and then we'll move forward with next steps.
Do you want to approve this one today for the 55,000, see if there's any option involved?
I'll move to-
Can we add like 5,000 to it, potentially up to 5,000 to it potentially, if that would also allow us to expand the migration piece of it?
to accept and move forward with the proposal and a contract with Urbanomics for up to $60,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Board is up. Okay, great. We don't have much more. Is that all new business or old business? Anyone else have anything? Just one quick comment from me as a report of agency council, the Key West project, which we I think approved in January as a final authorizing resolution, is looking to probably close in June. We will provide all the documents to everyone before that, so you can review them. We're stuck to have calls this week. So we will keep you updated, but you will see documents that you can read and review, and deals that were made when we had the meeting, and part of the resolution will be part of the documents.
And so that is the time in which they also are obligated to pay the $2 million to the school district. By the contract, I think it's at the close.
I'd have to look at the agreement
Yeah,
again.
it's at the close,
Was it-
be at the close, and then they would also,
I thought it was 1 million, then it was the deferred.
no, it's two,
Was it?
because we increased it from
Definitely 2.
2 to 3 and like 3.2 or something.
Yeah, I believe that their timeframe was able to pay the school district.
Okay.
I think was at the close.
Okay, we'll take a look.
Look at the.
And then I guess they would be paying their IDA fee as well.
Everything.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's definite.
Hmm.
The fee is definite, but we'll get you, I know you wanted to see the documents, so we'll show them to you beforehand. Is that nothing else? Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Move to close.
Second.
Aye.
All right, been a lot done today.
Yeah.
We have home funds that we have to,